Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kryix's Overwatch Champions Series Pacific preview. My name is Ben, lead reporter for Kryix, and I have with me some of the most knowledgeable people that I could find on the Pacific Southeast Asian scene in Overwatch. I have with me Mememachine, substitute support for 99 Divine, rXis, manager for Bleed Esports, and SPOOK, manager for Full House. Thank you all for joining me, and good evening to all of you.
Great pleasure to be here.
Yep. So the three people who know a lot yet don't know a lot
Yeah.
about the game.
Yeah, well, Mememachine is a player, sort of ish, if you kind of squint.
Yeah, I mean Spook as well.
Yeah.
Still probably better than some of the people in the bottom teams.
Well, we will get to those teams shortly, or longly rather. So I want to start off by briefly recapping how Bleed did at the Esports World Cup, the big Saudi-funded tournament that happened a couple weeks ago.
My favorite thing from this whole tournament was the Ajax himself coming out to tweet that they might rename Ajax to rename it, you know?
Yeah.
Violet.
I mean, they were lucky Lumi wasn't playing with Lucio this tournament. Not he would have more Ajaxes.
Lumi.
Speaking of Lucio, so due to, I believe, Lumi was able to attend the tournament because there were concerns about his schedule with Singapore's mandatory military service. He wasn't able to, I guess, practice or scrim with Bleed, so you played with Ace on support and had High Vision and Yoshinori 2K on DPS. And despite, or perhaps because of having Ace on Lucio, Bleed won all three of their control maps. Not just won them, but kind of dominated them. 6-0 in control rounds. But then 0-9 on other map types, despite some extremely valiant efforts, especially on Flashpoint against Zeta. So why, Ryan, why do you think that was the case that Bleed did so well on control specifically?
I think we're just chokers. I think we just didn't have the same amount of experience as the other teams to close out the series. I mean, actually, if you really watch the series, all three flashpoints should have been in our favor if we didn't choke. Like the last fight or the fight before, like versus Zeta, we were up. We were like one fight away, right? We staggered Bernard, right, on flashpoint, and we should have won that. Like High Vision got that crazy clip on like Nano Cassidy, right? We should have won that, but somehow we dropped the ball and they were able to get like 3 consecutive spikes on us to win it. Versus Ants, we were the second last fight. I think Ace caught you can see it on screen, like on the stream it looked like clear overextender, but we caught like a nano round push. But Ace was a bit like too far out of LOS. I mean, he was busy like dealing with Caster, who kind of like destroyed us that series, and so that push didn't work. We kind of segmented our outs. The next fight, we were up to, like Kale was still zoning out the back line, but somehow Ants managed to clutch so many fights and we lost that flashpoint. And versus MAT is the same, and we got reverse swept on flashpoint. We're up 2 points on flashpoint. They subcom, we couldn't adapt. We stuck on the Jungle Queen and we lost. So I think like, and all these flashpoints were like the second map. So like, I think one of them was the third, but it was mostly the second map. So we had so much momentum in the first map. We went into the second map confident, but every single time, it was the same script. We just lost 2-3. And I think at that point, for like a team like us, who we are not as experienced as these big teams on like a tier 1 LAN level, I think it kind of got to us mentally, and we kind of like slowly fell off after that because we couldn't regain our momentum. And eventually, like on the other 2 maps, next 2 maps, we kind of got, our performance was way less optimal than our control and flashpoint. And I think the style of comp we play definitely suits the control and flashpoint type more. I think in this tournament we relied a lot on the Ramatra and Diva, especially the double flex support comps like the Ram Anakiri, which I think was a really strong comp because we didn't really have because Ace was playing support, right? So we tended to lean towards the double flex support, and we didn't want to mirror any of the teams because coming from a minor region, right? We probably shouldn't take a mirror. And I think that was a mistake during the match versus MAT as well. We took a mirror against them on I Can Walk when we probably should have just stuck the comp we were comfortable with, and we didn't really play that mirror in scrim, so we weren't as experienced as MAT. So that's probably another thing where like it's kind of experienced team where we kind of dropped the ball on that one. But definitely we could have done a lot better. Most of the series we could have at least won 2 maps, but we ended up just winning control.
Yeah, I think still. Yeah, I think still a performance that I
think
hope
you're
that
muted.
Yeah,
am I
muted.
still.
Yeah.
Oh, whoops.
Ben.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. I think at least it's hopefully a performance that your region can at least be somewhat proud of.
I think it's not bad because I did a lot of negative
definitely gave Zeta some flashbacks.
Yeah. Hello? I said a lot of negative things about this tournament, but actually there was a lot of positives as well. Because if you look at our group, right? Like Zeta are full of Overwatch League players, top Overwatch League players from the years before. They have 2 Overwatch League champions, right? MAT, the only guy who wasn't Overwatch League was Tree because of age, right? And he's one of the NA's top prospects on DPS. And in ends, the only person who's not Overwatch League was Overwatch League before was WMemo. And you look at our team, we are all like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we're all tier 3 players. We're all tier 2 players last year. So to be able to take maps off every single one of them, like Zeta, MAT, ends, I think it's really good for our team and as a region as well. Because honestly, before this, it's still now there's still a very large region gap, but at least it's somewhat closing because we're not just being close with like the top 6 or top 7 NA team. We're like taking it to like the second place of NA and the second place of EU, right? Full of Overwatch League players. So yeah.
Yeah, very very impressive. I think so before the tournament, I'm assuming obviously the team is practicing like crazy. I've seen scrimming some Korean teams, scrimming makers, I'd imagine a lot.
Nah, makers didn't scream at all, man.
Oh, well.
I thought that was clear from what Ante was saying.
Yeah, no, that I think I knew that actually. I was just sort of talking. Does that
at least they screamed at the event though. They played warm up, so good for them.
So I remember when I interviewed you previously, Ryan, you said that the scrim quality of that DAF at the time DAF had was significantly worse than it had been in the past, due to China going kaput, Australia kind of being much less active than it was. Was this tournament able to get the team like good scrim practice, especially like against more Korean teams? Or
I think it was the same as Asia, honestly, because as I said before, like it's the top 4 Korea teams are like just scrimming each other, and even makers wasn't scrimming. So, and the thing about this tournament, there was hero bans, right? And every team outside of those 4 Korean teams, and once again, they're all preparing for OWCS, which means they're reluctant to scream on hero bans.
Right.
Which means going to the tournament, even if you could scream all these more bottom Korean teams, the Japanese teams, or like even the Chinese teams like Team CC and Oldest Pro, right? They were reluctant to maybe once like early on, but most of these teams most of the scrims we had, because we couldn't really manage to book with the top teams because skill issue, but yeah, but they didn't want to scream on hero bans, so we were kind of and hero bans was a very big factor in this tournament. So a lot of our hero bans were kind of theorized. We didn't have much practice. Our comp we thought would be the best in hero bans, like the Diva comp, the Ram comp, and but in scrims when we played without hero bans, like teams could easily just force counters onto us. Like example, like the Sigma comp is very reliant on like if you ban any one of the factors in like a Sigma comp, it's like easily counterable, right? So that's what we thought. Because coming to the event, we had MAT and ENS, so which is 2 very strong Sigma teams. So we wanted to counter Sigma. But it's hard to really practice against that. If you're always screaming teams who would play Sigma, which is good practice, but they always have the BAP, the Ilari, the Sigma, in the actual match, we could ban one of those at any map, right? But in scrims, we can't. So it makes scrims harder, especially in terms of the theory involved.
Yeah. So I want to move into talking about OWCS Pacific now. Obviously, one of the things that I imagine people were not super happy about with Stage 1 was the format, specifically the much smaller in scope format compared to Korea and Japan. That format has stayed the same for Stage 2. Spook, what are your thoughts on kind of the unchanged format?
I mean, honestly, like, I don't really have much thoughts on it. I just like, it's more of a, it is what it is thing, you know? Because like,
I'd like to say
maybe,
something after him.
yeah.
I feel like, can I interject on that? Because I feel the issue for that was like, you know, Namakuchi brothers last season, even though they were
Yeah.
like near the bottom, they managed to like turn back the season and make it for playoffs. So I feel like, especially for newer teams that need more time or just who want to get the experience, it's very hard for them to get experience because for, let's say, like in our now Goon Squad, for example, they only get to play 2 official matches and then they're out, like assuming that they lose both of them. So how can they get reps in if you want to train the region also? Although I do understand that we only have like 1 day a week out of the whole week, but I still feel like preferably just have more matches would be good. Like if you look at 3-1 diving, right at the start from last season, we even lost the map to like Teenage Rising, or we also fell down to loser brackets and stuff like that. When we literally had to rebuild our team 1 week or 2 weeks before the tournament happened. So I feel like just having more time, more plays, and more chance to like improve just helps that a lot more.
I also think like not just from a bottom teams level, like for example, my team, we're like sort of the one of the rare teams in the region. We're trying to treat this more like on a full-time thing, especially because we are under org right now, right? We have to have our commitments. It's kind of hard because you take away EWC from this year, right? In stage 1, we actually only played 4 matches for Pacific. We played against Fate, rode them, played against Altair, rode them. We played Honeypot, we won them. We played Honeypot against in Grand Finals, we lost to them. We played 4 games in Pacific total. That's for 1/2 the year. We just went to Korea, and if we didn't have EWC at all, which is crazy because like there weren't a slot for SEA in the EWC. We're just there because of a wild card, right? If there wasn't, we have a 3 months off season, do nothing. Maybe we come back again, we play another 4 matches. So it's not really worth it to kind of that's for us, like Bleed, like who are just the top team in the region. So if you move it down to like the middle of teams, it's not worth it at all to even commit to this because like what's the point, right? You're just playing a few games every half a year. Like, is that really worth it to scrim for 3 months off season? Like this type of price pool? Not really, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like bad.
Yeah, I think we can probably all agree that a format similar to Japan and Japan and Korea probably would have been preferable, but they have their
They'll
broadcast
probably save the
priorities,
dying region,
obviously.
to be honest.
What'd you say? Sorry.
They'll probably like save the dying region too.
Yeah.
You know?
I do think hopefully some of the rosters that have been formed in Pacific for this stage might hopefully bump up that viewership a little bit with some of the players that have been
SPOOK,
brought
right?
in.
A code never lie.
So I wanna get into that specifically. I wanna do some deep dives on a couple of these heavy hitters here. So I want to start with 99 Divine, formerly Honeypot, with a couple of the same players, Sagi, Kame, Light returning, Dreamer returning as one of the coaches, and they've made a couple of additions as well. They've brought in Colourhex on DPS. They've brought in R3K as their tank player. They've brought in Opener as their support player, and Mememachine, of course, as their bench boy in chief. So, couple of things here. I want to start with this DPS line. So, when I look at this on Wikipedia, right, I assume Sagi is your full-time starter. Between Colourhex and Kame, which one of them, if any of you know, is playing primarily for this team?
Probably Colourhex.
Colourhex.
Okay, Colourhex it is then. Is Kame basically a glorified substitute, or is he just like a rotational?
And he's also a glorified sub.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a sub.
Yeah. So
the only thing is that Soggy, because he's in army, they might have some issues. So Kame might need to like step in also for maybe, but from what we see right now, it should be okay for all the matches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this team definitely has. I mean, Opener is like, obviously Korean, but has a lot of history in OCE. So this is definitely like kind of continuing the OCE tradition of Honeypot, at least a little bit. Got Dreamer, Ho Chi Lee, those are OCE guys.
Got my boy back.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So R3K comes back out of retirement after a half a year break. Junker Queen guy, Sigma guy. Mememachine,
kind of
what?
been grinding Winston a lot recently.
Oh, okay. So that was one of
Cooking,
my, so that's
cooking.
my main concern when I look at this team is, okay, R3K has a very specific hero pool, at least in my mind. But if he has been working to improve his hero pool, Mememachine, how do you think R3K's hero pool will shape this team's playstyle?
I think R3K is actually a very flexible player because in Overwatch 1 he was the flex, actually the off tank. So a lot of the heroes currently that are meta are covered. The only one mainly being maybe Winston, that's the issue. But he's been really grinding Winston a lot also. So I see him playing ranked, or even scrims, he's just playing Winston also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue. Even then also when he was in Dev previously, I think he used to play like Ram a few times. So that also covers up the Ram and the Queen. So I think he can play whatever is needed.
Yeah, another worry of mine with this team is because you have Colourhex and Kame and Light, who are all kind of very flex players. And I think Honeypot did this, I think, at the Asia LAN. They kind of did some role swap shenanigans. I forget if it was out of necessity or out of just kind of a desperation shot against the Korean teams. Do you think that's something that could potentially happen again? Is that something that you're fearing?
I think with R3K, it'll probably not happen. The reason why last season it happened was I think they wanted Doom, but then I forgot who the time Adam, right, wasn't really that confident on Doom, so they swapped around Light and Adam.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only reason they swapped.
Yeah,
I think they overcooked on that one.
Yeah, that's Adam on Lucio was kind of.
Nah, he was on Kiriko.
He was on Kiriko.
Yeah.
Didn't I swear he played some Lucio? No.
No, Kame was the main support last season.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Lots of role swapping happening in Pacific. Are people very flexible, or is it out of necessity? You decide.
I think only some people are very flexible. So like Kame is known to play. I think he has played all roles in official.
Yeah.
He has played tank.
So
he has played main tank. Yeah, that's true. So,
No, I think there's
Kame, Light, Ace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think it's more like there's just like a gap in like quality of players between like the top teams and like those like lower that they could off-road and still probably be better than the middle tier teams, you know?
Like Adam on Kiriko is probably, just because he's better at Overwatch, is probably better than like maybe on Kiriko, for example.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing against specific players. He was playing against
like Mememachine on Flex
could
probably play like better than Revolver, to be honest.
Except in this case they were playing against like Yeti or whoever at the time.
I think it was just a style thing. They just thought, because last season they were very brawl oriented team with like Niang on hit scan. Actually, compared to last season and this season, I think their style changed a lot. Last season they were very like Adam played a lot of like ground tanks. Even the only dive would be like Diva, but he mostly played like the Orisa, the Sigma, right? And Niang is a very hard hit scan type of player. So I think they just didn't want to mirror the same style of FTG, so they just decided to throw a curveball, but somehow they overcooked and Light was on Doomfist.
Yeah.
But I think this season is very different, and I think most of the pieces they upgraded because they have Colourhex, right? I think he's very flexible, and they're more of a dive style oriented team now, which probably suits them, like the double flex DPS and the and R3K has been grinding a lot of Winston recently, and they have Light, Light is sort of a Ana orientated player compared to his like Bab or his Kiwi, right? And Opener is Korean, so he can play break.
Yeah. He's the GOAT.
Yeah. So I guess we won't be seeing too much Mememachine coming in for the break if they have Opener.
Maybe if there's a double main support meta like
I got the break.
I mean, they still have Kame. Kame can play main
They still have
support.
the Kame.
So Mememachine is the third string main support for 99 Divine. That's what I'm gathering.
Yeah.
Like, maybe if there's some universe where Soggy can't play and there's the double main support meta, you know? Like some
Mememachine just there for the ride, man. Don't even know how he got in. Nepotism, maybe.
Bro thinks he's on the team.
Yeah.
Blood thinks he's on the team, bro.
Yeah. Yeah, Colourhex is one of those one of the funniest things with him I mean, he's never actually went away. He kept kind of playing and streaming after he was released from Boston Uprising, but it is kind of newer fans discovering Colourhex's extremely specific and strange hero pool. Just a very particular set of heroes that he's good at, that is some hit scan, but not all hit scan, some flex DPS, but not all the flex DPS. It's great. So speaking of flex DPS, that's my attempt at a segue. There's a very accomplished player, a very successful player that has somehow, through means that I think only one person in here can really explain, ended up in the Pacific region. So, Spook, how the fuck did you guys get WhoRU?
Well, it's more like he wasn't really playing for a while. And then our coach, right, Gultik, he kind of just like called up an old friend, It was like, he just called up an old friend and he was like, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm. For context, for some of you all who might not be familiar, I'm assuming the connection here is that Gultek coached Runaway when FaZe was on that team, or FSaze, I think it's pronounced, right?
Pisaze. Don't get it right. Pisaze.
God, it's gonna be a nightmare for the casters. Okay.
Yeah. It's
for real.
It's okay. The casters are Korean, so they probably know because the F is for P.
Ah, okay, gotcha. A very accomplished player in his own right, I would say, was kind of always one of the guys that people were saying like, oh, he should really be an OWL, but just never got that opportunity. So they get him. So you're saying that you got Gultek, or sorry, Google Tech? Is it, how'd you pronounce it?
Gultek.
You got him first. He calls up Pisaze. Pisaze calls up WhoRU. He's like,
oh no, we called up Pisaze first, and then Pisaze called up Gultek.
Gotcha. So how did that how did that conversation even start with Pisaze?
He was like, oh, can I bring some friends?
Mm-hmm.
And then he just brought them.
Yeah, because I know you were looking at a couple of. Can I share? Because obviously Mememachine was sort of informing me about this saga as it was unfolding, because I was very curious. As if you weren't also feeding me info. Most of which I don't even. A lot of the stuff that I dig around for, I don't even really share publicly. I just am curious like that, Are you allowed to share some of the other players that you were potentially looking at? Because I think it's utterly fascinating.
Okay, so basically we were looking at, we contacted a few other players. One of them was like, Exy.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, a small player from a team called Florida Mayhem.
That's the team you went to, and not like Dallas Fuel or Paris Eternal.
Yeah. I mean, that's their most recent team,
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I mean, we wanted him initially. He was okay with a lower buyout because we are our team is getting sponsored by Wenzhou. And we wanted to get Exy. He was okay with a lower buyout and he was considering it. But in the end, he wanted a higher buyout because he was getting more offers from other teams.
Other teams in Korea, or perhaps in other regions?
NA. He considered us despite the lower buyout because he didn't really. I don't think he wanted to play time zones, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an issue. And we kind of offered more flexible scrim times.
Right.
Because I think he's a uni student. In the end, he ended up telling me that, oh, if you can't meet this buyout, then I'm just gonna focus on school,
So I guess don't look for him to show up in North America.
Yeah, I don't think so. Probably not. Unfortunately, the goal is not coming back.
Yeah, I know. Also, one of the other players that Mememachine told me that was considered was Flower, right?
I mean, That one was I mean, it's just an option, because one day like Farah asked Proxiezs to like if you want to like play some, and then like he suggested to us, right? Like Proxiezs suggested to us, what if we get Flower? And then like we asked him, is he still good? I mean, like he's probably good enough for the region, honestly, but like Faye said, he's kind of washed, and like
Yeah.
so like I mean he ended up not like coming back. I think I'm not really like fully informed about this whole like context thing, because a lot of the conversations were translated because I can't speak Korean.
Mm-hmm.
Like my player Overshake translated most of the talk.
All right, because he's Korean.
Yeah, it's
Korean blood, but he lives in Singapore.
Gotcha, yeah. Interesting. So yeah, so getting into the team, for those of you watching, you may not be completely familiar. WhoRU and Proxiezs are the imports at the DPS and tank position, and then you've got Speed 75, who is this kind of, if any of y'all are familiar with Yoshinori 2K, the sort of young hotshot DPS player that played this on Bleed but can't play in OWCS because he's too young. Speed 75 is kind of, I think he's kind of like that, but Indonesian and maybe a bit more raw, but he's got that kind of prodigy energy in my view.
Yeah.
A very flex DPS oriented player, I believe. And then they've got a backline of Overshake at main support and Ray Momo at flex support. Ray Momo, some of y'all may be familiar with from Team Taiwan at Overwatch World Cup, a couple of Pacific teams last year. I think a pretty like solid backline. Probably like the best backline in Pacific that doesn't have somebody off rolling.
Or an import.
Yeah.
It's the best local backline.
Well, because Light is like kind of he was like originally not a support player. Is sort of what.
Yeah, but compared to Bleed, I feel like Bleed has, I guess, now announced MAKA and PaLee. So
yeah. Well, isn't I mean, one of them is going to be off rolling, right? Because they're both flex support.
I mean, PaLee just plays.
PaLee plays both first.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a flex or main.
Gotcha. Okay. So I mean, we'll get to it, but I guess you're confident in his ability to play Lucio, Brig.
Yeah.
Life.
I mean, he played main support for us in EWC, so.
I thought Ace played Lucio.
They swapped around sometimes.
Gotcha.
PaLee played Brig. PaLee played the Brig, and PaLee can play Lucio too.
Gotcha. Yeah. We'll get into Bleed in a moment. So, question for you, Spook. So how is the team integrating these veteran Korean players?
I think like it's more of a team synergy thing, because like right now they're all like very very all individually like very very mechanically like talented players, but it's just like maybe a communication error, like maybe communication issues, because like Proxiezs and WhoRU hasn't played in a hot minute, like neither of them have played in a while. So they're just like right now coming back into the
neither really into the game. Mixed rosters as well, right?
Yeah. Like but the thing is like their English isn't like in gameplay wise isn't that bad. Like they can communicate. It's more of the synergy thing. Like maybe like they haven't played in a while, right? Because both WhoRU and Proxiezs, like they haven't even like touched rank in a while. Like Proxiezs, like the first day when he joined our team, like he like hasn't touched his main account like since Overwatch 1, and he streamed his like first rank game and it was in plat, and like the next day he ended up in like low GM. Yet he played overnight and ended up in low GM.
Just for reference for the outside, right? For Asia, right? Low GM is like top 200 or 150. Just GM5 is top. Yeah, top. GM5 is top 100. So from plat, and it's like actual plat all the way to GM is like top 100 is crazy. Can I also keynote, since I was a teammate with Overshake before? Overshake also speaks Korean, so he also can help communicate. So he can help be the bridge between the English speaking and the Korean speaking.
So you're sort of common in a mix of Korean
He comes
and
in
English?
both. He can do live translation like really fluently.
Oh, okay, that's really awesome.
Yeah. No, the thing is the other two SCA players, their first language aren't English either, so
Right.
that could be a
Yeah.
challenge as well.
But the thing is like right now, right, we're kind of like I don't know how to say it, but before this, right, none of our local players like Overshake, Speed or Raymomo, none of them like played a lot of like practice, like ranked on main role. Most of them like play off role for rank. They don't touch their main role. Like they only like start recently. Like they do a lot of like live coaching. They've been working like really hard. Like live coaching with our coach. Like whenever they're free. Like out of scrim times.
My team hasn't even scrimmed yet.
Yeah, like I mean, you're,
EWC is just a big scrim.
Taking a break after EWC.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that I assume that ability, that synergy, and kind of like, for lack of a better word, ability to kind of be friends with each other becomes more important as you look, because obviously like this team's goal is to make the Asia finals on LAN in Korea, and when you get to that environment, being able to, be with your teammates, socialize with your teammates, connect with your teammates becomes more important to kind of getting everybody in that groove. I remember Cal from NRG Shock was saying like how impactful that was for them to all be together at LAN in Dallas and just hanging out with each other.
I think it is important because like a lot of our players are already like friends. Like WhoRU, Proxiezs, and like Overshake, they're all like getting along together really well, especially with like our coach Gotek. You kind of like it's very like I think it's a very like positive team environment, to be honest.
Yeah, is
yeah.
Joel also one of your coaches, or is he less?
Yeah, he's our assistant coach right now.
Okay, cool, very cool. So I want to quickly touch on a couple of other teams, and then we'll get to the big dog bleed. So UCA Esports is kind of an interesting roster. They have a player called Jaco that some of the audience might kind of be familiar with his name, just because if you're sort of somebody who browses Wikipedia, because he had a team that was like named after himself for a while, and they competed in.
That was my team.
Oh, that was your team.
Yeah,
it was
the one who got
like
forgotten.
Jaco Bird, right? Something.
Yeah, we left him behind.
But he's kind of been around for a while. I think he's a player that people might be familiar with, kind of a flex TPS, and he's paired with Sunset, who I remember being pretty decent in stage 1.
Yeah.
As well as Flicky Minaj, who might win an award for like best name. I mean that's a good name.
Not Mememachine. Oh, I guess he isn't
close.
playing.
It's really
Meme
close.
_machine.
Yeah,
I asked Blizzard to get the underscore. Okay.
How much does the underscore add to the aura, do you think?
A lot, because you cannot get it naturally. You have to ask Blizzard to change it for you. And during the players form, you just put there what you want, and then they'll just add it for you.
So speaking of which, Mememachine, what do you think this team's ceiling is, USIA, with the players they have?
Personally, for me, I think the strong suit of the team is the DPS, because like I think Flicky Minaj, even though he's like very new, he's like willing to learn and very listen. And one great thing about him is that he calms a lot for the team, and he really like tries to plan each fight for each team, which is for our region a bit rare for DPS player. And Jaco just has always been just around, just doing good since I think he won the 2020 tournament. Even though he got left behind, he's still pretty good. Actually, he's still really good for our region.
Yeah,
I think their team would be good in like if they play to their strengths. Because honestly, even though the DPS are their hero pools aren't that wide, which is why I guess they have to have 3 DPS players to cover each other's weaknesses. Like Jaco is a flex DPS. He used to be really known for his flying characters, right? That's why it was Jaco Bird. Like his Pharah, his Echo is really strong. But his Tracer was his kind of weak link. But Flicky Minaj kind of fills that gap because Flicky is kind of like a Tracer specialist, like Tracer main. He's a Tracer main who tends to lean. His other heroes tend to lean more towards the hit scan, but I would say Flicky is one of the more like promising no name up and coming players we have in Singapore. I mean, recently, which is honestly quite good because recently we do see a lot of new Thai players coming up, right? Like Teenage Rising Fate, but not necessarily Singaporean players. The Singaporean players that have been at the top have been the top for years, right? And Fiki is kind of like one of the first few who kind of has the potential to breach into that echelon. So I'm excited to see how he does in his first stage. But I still think this team lacks a lot of experience. Because even the imports that they got, Su and Bayadir, they are not very strong by any means. They are kind of
Yeah.
unknowns as well. And yeah. Fun fact
I think
actually, if you
sorry.
speaking about like players like Kame and Ace, Patrick Core is another one of those players that kind of play all three roles as well.
Mm.
Because he in Overwatch 1 he actually used to play main tank, I'm pretty sure. And in Thailand contenders, he played flex DPS for Angelica and now he's on flex support. So yeah, quite interesting there.
Yeah.
It just seems like a SCA special at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speaking of some of those up and coming Thai players, on the other two majority Thai teams we have are Fade Altair and Altair, whatever.
Altair, I
Fade,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah,
Fade
Fade,
Altair. I
Fade.
was thinking of how it's pronounced in Common Writer Deno. Altair. Anyway, that's a. If any of you know what that is, that's.
No.
No.
Shout out Common Writer Zero Nos. Fade Altair and Teenage Rising. But between those two teams, who are some of the like Thai players that people should be looking at as kind of some of the stronger ones?
I think for Fate, I don't know. I think their tank player maybe because not many
Tyron,
tank players
yeah.
can really like play monkey. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because he plays monkey, I think, and monkey isn't like that widely played in our region, like to a certain level.
Yeah, I mean they had to get a Tito Watt out of retirement to play Winston last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's still a large gap between Kyron. Like he still has a long way to go, I think. So I think the two
But he,
players that is on Fate that have potential would probably be Shake It, their hit scan, and Kyron. I mean it's easy to look good on hit scan on like a not so good team, but Shake It has been kind of impressive in the past years. He's looked decent like mechanically. So I think those two players. And honestly, the one thing you have to give props to Fate is that they stuck as a core for a very long time since last year, like summer or fall. I think it's very rare to see like especially a average to bottom team really sticking as core and wanting to improve together. And I think it's props to them for that. Yeah.
Definitely pays dividends over time. The last kind of more minor team I want to talk about briefly here is Cat. I do have a statement from Kryix's social lead, Mustard, social media guy for Team Hong Kong from the Overwatch World Cup. They kind of relates to this team because they have a couple of like Hong Kong, Taiwan World Cup players. He says the current Hong Kong Taiwan scene is very dead. Not a lot of players left besides those that are international and or played in World Cup. Overwatch just isn't as big in those countries. Cat's roster has World Cup roster players from Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Indonesia, but with little in the way of superstar talent. This team's most notable player is their tank Butiuk, which I think might have been a typo because I think that's their coach.
yeah, that's the coach.
Yeah.
Maybe he was referring, I don't know if he was referring to their tank or saying that their most
Probably
notable
their
player
coach. That
was
the
their
tank is
coach.
kind of
Yeah,
a ranked
yeah.
player also.
Yeah, Tank is, although he's a rank player, he has reached like I think rank 1. He's like known as a ball one trick in Korea.
Honestly, I don't think their tank is that bad. Honestly,
He's pretty. I
I
think
mean,
he's alright,
the
but
one
he's just a ball one trick.
I mean, he
he's a
reached
one-trick,
rank. I
he's
think if you
good.
go on Korean leaderboard, this season he's reached ranked 1 as a ball one trick, but he's a ball
I
one
think he's
trick,
actually
so
like
just
pretty good.
Yeah.
take it as what it is. He's a ball one trick.
Yeah, the Russ also is also like reached ranked 1 also before, so pretty good. So Russ, I think let me check. He has played for
Russ is
MDY
sort of
and O2 Academy.
It's a sort of a minor Korean contenders flex support.
Yeah.
Dash in my mind is actually pretty interesting, if only because and you guys probably know this, but him, Light, and then Supreme and Romani, who are both playing in Japan right now, all go to, or I think Supreme might have graduated, but to the same college in America. They all went to and played at UC Irvine. which is interesting. There's like 4 UC Irvine players playing in Asia. Obviously, a couple of them are Asian American, so they're using that dual nationality to count as domestic players. But it's kind of cool. Obviously, Cat also has Kurumi, who I'm kind of an apologist for, because I think he kind of reminds me of like Logix or like Baby Bay back in the day, where he'll either kind of take over a map or just be completely silent. And he has the potential to really pop off, like he did in some of those World Cup matches, but can also kind of go very quiet at times. Very much a like Widowmaker.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know if I'd say specialist, but like, you know, Circuit Royale is his playground.
I think other than Kurumi, I think a player that not a lot of people know about is actually Avicii, who's like a Taiwanese player. He's a hit scan player, and honestly, I think yeah, like the singer Avicii, because in Chinese 7 is pronounced as Qi, so it's Avicii.
That's cool.
But he's actually a player with a lot of raw like mechanical talent. He didn't play for Team Taiwan last year due to like personal issues, but he probably would have been chosen, and he's really strong on like the snipers, especially like Widowmaker, and excited to see what he does, because he's honestly a player that's not really played a lot of tournaments in the past. He's kind of just a rank like mechanical freak, like a lot like everyone in the Taiwanese OWCS scene knows him, but outside of the scene, probably no one really knows who he is. So I'm excited to see how he does. Yeah. And of course, we have Proxiezs, Mememachine's favorite teammate from last season. Sure, he has a lot to say about his Baptiste.
To be fair, he's on his main role now. He was off the
Okay, now he can finally play his main role. Okay, so that's all I can say.
Proxiezs window is kind of a meme in our scene, and not a lot of windows of values to be seen.
I see.
I'll just say one thing about it, and then I will not speak on it because I'm
Is it still your? Oh, it's not your Discord banner anymore.
Okay, I can talk about that. That one is funny, but I thought about this. There was one entire week of scrims we tried, and we scrim a lot, okay, for the 3-2-1 diving, because we were a new team. We scrim about like about 20 hours a week plus, which is a lot for our region. And he has not won for one entire week, he did not win a single fight with Window.
Good thing he's not on BAP anymore. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, but now he can finally play his main role. So I'm actually going to be quite excited to finally see him play. Like, as much as like the community like to meme him on his flag support, but it is still not his main role. And now let's see him shine.
I think it's you, bro.
Yes, it's me.
The Discord banner was his window from Wildcard for like 2 months, man.
It was not that. That was not his. You forgot.
Oh, that was the lamb. That was the lamb.
The lamb, bro.
The lamb that he didn't press.
Oh my god.
Very, very funny.
Yeah.
So shout out Goon Squad, but we're not going to talk about them. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wait. Can I talk one thing about Goon Squad? Then we do. So since I was in Taiwan at that point in time, there was a tsunami in Taiwan at the same time, or hurricane or something like that. Oh, sorry, typhoon. So during one of the matches, right, Revolver, because I was like helping the team a bit, message at the start of the thing, a tree fell into my house, and then he literally had to play. He had to play like the last game or one of the games with like apparently some tree that hit his house. That's the only thing I can say.
Do you have a photo of that?
He only had a photo of the tree after like they took it out. I don't have it.
Amazing picture of just a guy like locked in playing Overwatch with a tree just crushed half of his house in the background.
Yeah, but overall in the region, I still think there's a quite clear divide actually this season compared to last. Because last season there was this tier of FES 3-1 and RTFM, where those three are kind of close to each other. I think 3-1 took like Map 5, both of those teams. So their tier was like similar, where they could punch up, but there's still a gap between the Death and Honeypot and the rest. But I think this season Full House has kind of joined that top tier with this like basically 3 big teams right now: Bleed, Divine, and Full House. But the gap between those 3 and the rest has kind of drifted apart a bit more, because I think for 4th place is, you could say, like contention wise, by on paper alone, it could be Cat favored and it could be USIA, but I think the gap between even those 2 teams and the top 3 is still very large. So that's probably one thing I want to see, is whether, because after all, like for minor region, we really need to start like developing our newer talents. So it's always one of the things I see in every season, whether the lower teams can punch up. I mean, last season 3-1 diving were considered the lower team, and they did manage to get top 3. So wondering if anything of such happens this season. Another thing, and actually we didn't really talk about Teenage Rising just now, but I think that team has really overcooked this time because I don't know what the hell they're doing in qualifiers. So you see the roster now on Wikipedia, they have like, okay, like Feel So Fast is on DPS, but he's also on tank at the same time. In qualifiers, I saw the guy called Savior. I still don't know who he is, but maybe I don't know. But he was on DPS and support. There's on DPS and support in qualifiers as well. They have Safe Hope, who's like a DPS player, but he's on support as well. They have a random like American playing main support, not really a value import if you ask me. I think
And
the
not
roster
even
is,
as far as I'm aware.
the roster is overcooked, man.
I don't know if Juzo has any connection to any SEA countries. I think they're just a American main support player.
No idea.
I think they play for a team called
And
Halfway.
Chris V is 27 years old running in Mememachine, so I have really no idea
Jaehong
what
is
they're cooking
32,
with, man.
so like.
But Jaehong has league experience.
Yeah,
I don't know.
He's also 32
Chris V
years
peaked
old.
at top 6 Thai contenders.
Yeah,
Maybe
well,
not really the same thing.
Yeah, we're gonna end up with Few So Fast back on Doomfist, aren't we? So I want to get to the big dog, that jersey that year.
I mean, we lost last season, so I don't know.
Yeah, you're kind of lucky that they based the pick based on like who did the best in OWCS Asia. So
we won 2 maps of FTG.
Damn
think
right,
that deserves some reward.
Bleed has done something that they've not done before, which is bring in Korean players. I think this is an important opportunity to clear the air on this a little bit. Clear was not kicked. He wanted to return to playing in North America. To my knowledge, I think he is going to be signing with a team in North America.
There are a lot of details, but I think it's just a mutual agreement, so let's just leave it at that.
And Yoshinori 2K obviously was old enough to play in EWC, not old enough to play in OWCS. I think if you make Stockholm, theoretically he'd be old enough. But that's obviously a long ways out, and
Mission Impossible.
You know, there's always a shot, but that is a tough ask, yeah. But you know, theoretically,
we have to beat Team Falcons to qualify for Stockholm.
Yeah, well, you know, but stranger things have happened. So, bringing in SeungAn, who played for 3-2-1 diving last stage, played in the Korean open qualifiers, did not qualify there, and then MAKA, formerly briefly of Florida Mayhem, and who played most recently for Timeless Australia in OCE Faceit League and Genesis, right?
Yeah.
So why bring in Korean players now?
Somehow like Pacific with no money has 2 Overwatch League champions, so I don't know how that happened. But yeah, I think
Overwatch
like
League champions with a combined
honestly,
0 maps played in Overwatch League playoffs.
Yeah, but
that's actually crazy.
If it was a perfect scenario, I think we wouldn't have gotten Koreans, because honestly, in Dev's history, we really tried to kind of maintain our image as like we're kind of a friendship team, but and I think WDG put it best in their one-liner, where the Dev is the pride and legacy of the Pacific. We're kind of like Vero, where we didn't want to bend down and get a Korean import. Somehow Vero still don't have Koreans, but honestly, let's see what happens for them this stage. But I think because I mean, we've always had imports, right? We had Clear and we had Dank, but they weren't really Korean. But I think a large risk that we had to consider every time we thought of getting Koreans was definitely the language. But I think we wanted to take a big risk, because we felt that after EWC we were kind of stagnating, right? Like the way Scrims felt wasn't really that good before. Like it's like the same story before OWCS Asia, before EWC. Scrims kind of don't go that well. We kind of lock in at the tournament. We perform better than expected, but we still haven't got a single international win yet. From last year, this year we haven't got yet. And a problem that our team really faced, like the past few years, I'm sure everyone knows, is that we had like bunch of random people on support that weren't even support players. The only actual support we had, main support we had that played with PaLee was iBang. But he retired because he kind of doesn't really have the passion for the game, so that's that. I mean, normal, right? So we had like Aputo on main support. We had like Lumi didn't really go that well, so he's back on tank now, which is good for him. I think he really wants to play tank as well. So there weren't really that many support options in the Pacific region. I mean, our best option, if we really wanted to stick it out as a local team, we to put Ace on support or like me again. So we just brought in MAKA, and I think PaLee has really wanted to transition to main support for a really long time, and I think he really excels in that role because I think he's a really valuable asset. As you see now with players like Gala, Violet, a player that can play Lucio, Break, and especially the Illari now is really important. If you have these three, are really good because you can play the BAP, the double flex comes with Illari, the Lucio and Break. So I think he's a player that is really like suited for this style of play, like sort of like the Violet and Gala type of role. And I think he really wants to play that because he's also our IGL for the team, and it also relieves some pressure from him mechanically if he can play main support and focus more on shot calling. As for SeungAn, I think we wanted definitely because Lumi is still part of our team, and we don't really want to leave anyone behind. We are still confident on him as tank, but he's not really played tank for quite some time, and there are some weaknesses in his hero pool. I mean, all tanks in Overwatch do have their weaknesses in the hero pool. Not everyone is someone like the Toronto player.
Even someone, I don't
yeah,
think his
so
Queen's
and
amazing.
Lumi is he's often player leaning more towards like the diva, the queen, so like actually basically like R3K, but without the Sigma, and maybe his dive tank's a bit better than R3K, but I think SeungAn is
play a lot of the same things.
We wanted but Lumi doesn't have that very strong Sigma in him. I think he'll admit that himself. But SeungAn is like the goat of Sigma. I think as the people below me can testify as well after carrying them last stage. Sigma is very good. And I think we as I said, our team was stagnating. We really wanted to bring some life back into the team. I think SeungAn is a young player with a lot of passion, a lot of like hunger, a lot of drive to improve. And I think he can really bring the point of getting him was kind of to bring that energy, that like the passion to grind back in the team. I mean, ideally, like if we could build like a Pacific super team, we could, but a lot of even the best players like Sogi and Atrike, they all spread apart in different teams. So
was there any consideration of trying to get R3K back?
Yeah, but I mean, it was kind of a bit too late because he already committed to 99 Divine.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just fell at that. But yeah, but I think it's a bit of like the copium in me, like the romance of esports, right? You want to be like the like no Koreans, like full SEA team. We go to the world stage, close the region gap, all this, but. I think there's only so few players in Pacific. Like if we want to get a support, a tank, there's really no one in Pacific. So easiest option was to get Koreans, and with the roster lock being the roster lock was the July 30th, right? EWC ended on July 29th, but our match, we got eliminated like a few days before. So we only had like 2 to 3 days to kind of get the players we wanted. There are a lot of talks with multiple players, but I think we are quite happy with where we landed with SeungAn and MAKA.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people might think like, why SeungAn and not Peppy or Pressure or Kellen or or like why MAKA and not Faith or Aiden or whoever. I'm just naming random people now, but you definitely have a specific vision for like what you want out of what you want in these players.
Can I talk about SeungAn, which is why it's kind of good for this team also?
Go for it.
Because okay, since I was a teammate with SeungAn is his English is really good, and he's one of the primary callers. So he also helps with like the team dynamic because he knows when to call his pushes, and especially he knows his timings really really well. And his Sigma is, I still think, from like the previous season, the best tank in the region. Kind of carried me, yeah. So like in our 3-1 diving comms, it was always just him and me mainly, and then we just like I just like him because he's also very positive. He also listens to the coaching stuff very well, and he's just like a not just a vibes guy, but he also brings in the skill to do it.
Yeah, and I think not. I think this is not. I think can move on from like my team, but I think generally speaking, because there's a lot of imports coming with Pacific. A lot of times, like, because we're the like 3 managers here, but a lot of times when we're considering, it's like when you get imports, there's this definite clear skill gap. Maybe for Bleed it's different because we are the top players on region and even blind, but other teams there's this clear skill gap. If you get Koreans, you kind of get them to carry you, right? Like we 3-1 diving last season, they got SeungAn and Battles to carry them, right? It's the same with Japan. But the thing is, with a lot of these Koreans, they kind of have this expectation to perform, but it's kind of mentally draining for them as well. If they have this whole carry mindset, they think they're better than everyone on the team. They're like, whatever, I don't really have to improve because I'm just carrying them anyways. So I think players not just getting good players, but getting players with good mindsets, especially in these minor regions like SeungAn, who's there to genuinely want to be better, want to help improve the team. I think it's really good as well because you could easily just get a top Korean player, but they could be toxic. They could have the ego, like, oh, I'm like so much better than you guys. I don't really care, like win or lose, whatever, man. But there's a really big considerations for like minor regions as well, but we're getting Koreans. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're coming up on about an hour here. Thank you all for your insight. The last thing I want to just throw out here is obviously if I ask you all, who's gonna win, you're probably just all gonna say your own team. So I want to ask you instead something different. I want each of you to give me a player on a team that's not the one that you're on that audiences should be tuning in for.
I think let's all say a local player, right?
Go for it, yeah.
Local player.
How about this? How about to make it more interesting? Can we have one from the top 3 and then one from the rest?
Go for it.
Okay, so for the top 3, I still think PaLee is probably my favorite player. And from the rest, I think Flicky is my favorite.
From the top 3, I'll have to say R3K because he hasn't played for a while, but I still think back then he had a lot of potential, was the best tank in the region. I think he still holds true today, and he's a very hardworking, very amiable player, a very good bubbly personality. And if we both make it to land, I'm excited to see him again. So R3K, and outside of the top 3, I'll try not to go with the same as Mememachine. Let me just look who's even outside the top 3. Maybe Avicii. Yeah, Avicii. For the reasons I mentioned. Yeah.
You can say the same if you have the same opinion. I mean, if it's the same.
I think you can say
honestly, like I think Proxiezs isn't bad.
Just kidding.
Bro, I think like
I want to see Proxiezs on his main role though. Let's see.
Honestly, yeah, Proxiezs on his main role. I think he's actually like with a bit of like practice or like and right coaching, I think his team will be like good.
Yeah.
Or like he will be very good.
Yeah. For me,
he's very good mechanically as well as like.
Yeah.
And then a player in the sort of big 3. Spook.
I think Speed.
Not from your own team. Not from your own team.
From your own team.
Okay. I guess like maybe Light. Maybe.
Yeah.
Because like he has a very flexible hero pool, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I give 3 or 2? Yeah.
Sure.
Does Colourhex count as a local player? I know he's like I know he's technically an import, but like
yeah, I guess whatever.
If you want to import, I would have gone to my homie SeungAn. Okay, so then you just try.
I feel like I've all right.
You know what? You know who's the import? Skilled Ender on Goon
Yes,
Squad.
technically,
India
yes.
India is an import.
For reasons I still don't
Respect
understand.
to the Goon
Yes.
Squad. They maxed out their 2 imports with an Indian and an Australian.
You know, yes, as
You know
they
what?
should.
You know what they should have done? Actually, they should have named themselves Deaf because now they're full like non-Korean team.
Real. You should give your name to them.
Yeah, they're the
I guess
only...
Teenage Rising is also non-Korean and Fate.
Yeah, well,
Fate-
they have an American, so...
I mean, Fate is literally was our academy team, so yeah.
Yeah, that's why I also
Fate's-
feel like Fate is pretty good because of the help from the Deaf.
That's why they're Fate, you know.
So my
you flip the
actual
name backwards.
pick would actually probably be Colourhex from the top 3 teams. And from outside of that, I honestly gotta say Kurumi. I do think or honestly shout out to Shake It. I feel like he's kinda
Honestly,
fun to
respect to
watch.
all the local players who are still grinding this
Yes,
game, even though the
absolutely.
environment is not that good. Kurumi is definitely a player that's still hungry to grind. So yeah, good.
Well, thank you all so much for your time.
Yeah.
OWCS Pacific kicks off on August 8th at 7 p.m. Korean time, which is 6 a.m. I believe Eastern time and 1 p.m. European time, I think. I think that's right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Something like that. The actual start times you can find at OW_esports_Asia on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter obviously at CryXGG. And all of our individual socials will be underneath our faces here on the video screen here. And yeah, thank you all so much for your time, and good luck in the competition.
Yep.
Thanks for having
Even if
us.
we can't beat the Koreans as the big 3, let's make sure to beat the Japanese again.
Yeah.
Mememachine
Okay.
lost the 6th blow. Last
I
stage,
prefer-
we will be 3-4-3, but he lost to 6th blow in the wild card.
I have the reason,
well,
and that was my banner.
Six Blow didn't make Japan. They didn't make the main
Yeah.
event, so.
Well, I had the reason, and it was my Discord banner. So,
All right,
Alright.
thank y'all so much.
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Thanks for having me.